In this video, I'm going to review The Justice of Kings. Hello AOS fans, Robin here, and I'm back with a book review for you. I haven't done book reviews for ages. It was my New Year's resolution back in 2022 that I was going to do book reviews on the channel. And it was my 2023 resolution that I would read more fantasy books, and I have actually kept that one. I've read several fantasy books this year, and I thought, right, I'm going to review some fantasy books. And I'm going to start with this one, because this is my favourite of the year so far. It's called The Justice of Kings by Richard Swann. I think it came out last year. It's published by Orbit, and I really enjoyed this book. Why? Well, a little bit of backstory for you. About 20 years ago, I tried to write a book. And actually, it turns out it's really quite hard. And my book was going to be set in a fairly traditional Germanic Old World style fantasy setting, which I know some people find cliched, but it was what I liked. I grew up on Warhammer, and I love the Old World, so I kind of wanted that fairly traditional fantasy setting. And I wanted to, the centre of it, I wanted to be this sort of dichotomy between religion and magic. And so religion kind of underpinned a lot of the society, much like medieval society, I think, in Europe at the time. It kind of, I kind of wanted that kind of religion to underpin what everybody did and how they evolved and how they related to one another. And that, pretty much in a nutshell, is what this is. Only it's about 100 million times better than what I would have created. And so it's The Justice of Kings, and it's on the back it says, basically it follows Sir Conrad von Vought, an Emperor's Justice who is detective, judge and executioner all in one. But as chaos threatens to engulf the Empire, these are dangerous times to be a justice. So the central character, so the book is narrated by von Vaught's secretary, who is actually in the book. It's kind of, we later learn because it's kind of told through flashbacks, so we learned that she is a justice herself now, and this is right, she's really old when she's narrating this. So we know that these events have all happened quite a long time ago, but she's only young when she's narrating it, and we know she's going to be travelling a lot of distance across the story arc of the series. I assume it's going to be a trilogy, because there is a second book out. We'll talk about that in a minute. And so she's narrating this story about her time with von Vought as his secretary. So she basically writes down the edicts and things that he brings down. He travels around the countryside dispensing justice, but he doesn't, he's sort of a little bit of a witch hunter, a little bit Poirot. So he's investigating crimes, and there are judgments, so he can bring down judgments upon people, but he's a very fair-minded person. So at the opening of the book, there's this sort of heretics going on, and he is very open-minded about people sort of and their beliefs and what have you. So it's interesting. He's a sympathetic character, but he's a tough character, and his action there of showing leniency will then have, it says at the beginning, is going to have sort of huge rippling ramifications across the entire empire. One interesting aspect of von Vought is that he sort of has, what I guess in traditional fantasy terms, he sort of has necromantic powers. He can't use them that strongly because they're not that easy to use, and they tire him out. But he does have the ability to commune with the dead and do various other kind of things, which I think in a traditional D&D sense would be necromancy spells. And it adds this really creepy layer to the book, which I really like. I don't really like my fantasy to be extremely gratuitous. There is some violence in it, but it's not gratuitous violence, it's not gory, but it just is, bits of it are deeply unsettling, which I really like. Kind of gets under your skin and sort of bleh. But so that's a really strong part of the book. The first half is, like I say, so he's a bit Poirot. So the first half is kind of a whodunnit. He's trying to investigate various crimes in various towns and try and work out what's going on. And so you get a feel. That's how you get a feel for the characters in the book. So he's got a retainer as well as this secretary, and they go round and investigate various things. And then when they get to one town, they find things are very much, the sort of central mystery is very much deeper than it first appears. And then gradually, the novel gradually sort of then morphs into an undercover operation and then there's a plot reveal, and that's got deep ramifications for the rest of the Empire. And then it kind of builds up to a cataclysmic conclusion. So it is the first book in the series, so some bits are resolved, but other bits are left open. So I love this from start to finish, so much so that I immediately upon finishing it went and ordered the next one, which is called The Tyranny of Faith, which kind of even more dovetails into that kind of religion idea that I'd had for my book. Not that that's relevant really, but that's why it really appeals. That kind of fascinated by the power of religion over us. Which I guess the tyranny, some people might say. Do check out a non-fiction book called Dominion by Tom Holland. I'm halfway through that. It's a fascinating way of how religion evolved. But so I'm just really interested in seeing where this goes. I pre-ordered the paperback because I'm a skinflint and I've got a pile of books this high to read anyway. But when that comes out, I think it comes out in July, I shall be straight on that when it arrives. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved. It's kind of. When in my fantasy, I grew up in the sort of 70s, 80s really, when I was reading fantasy novels, and I loved Tolkien, I loved David Eddings, I wouldn't say I loved, but I enjoyed the Shannara Chronicles, and I was built up on a kind of traditional hero, good versus bad narrative, and I, as a result, possibly, I'm quite an optimistic person anyway. I don't really like grimdark novels. I find them too depressing. I find them often violent for violence sake, and they're not really my thing. But this beautifully walks the line between kind of heroism and grimdark and reality. So you've got, I wouldn't have necessarily said that Von Volt was a hero, but he tries to be upstanding in what he does. All the character backstories are very realistic in terms of fantasy setting, but the people are real. These characters are real. And they try to do the best that they can in the circumstances that they're in, and I really like that about the book. It is more subtle than say the Lord of the Rings. I'm actually reading the Lord of the Rings to my youngest son at the moment. It's quite an interesting comparison between the two. They're not really the same at all, but I think they both obviously belong to the same tradition of fantasy storytelling, and I think the richness of the writing in here is almost comparable to Tolkien. It doesn't quite go on as long about bits of wood and parts of woods and light and things as Tolkien did, but they're definitely, you can draw an evolutionary arc from the Lord of the Rings through to the Justice of Kings. I really like that. They're quite similar as well. I don't know if you've read them, to Peter McLean's Priest series of novels, another set of novels I try to remember that are sort of grimdark, but again are mostly about sort of good-ish people trying to do the best they can in difficult circumstances, which again I really like about them. I think the world building is great. All the characters have immersive backstories that make you sympathise with them, and I love the world building. I love that the setting is really nice. I can't wait to see where this is going to go with the next book. So if you haven't read it, then check it out, because I would thoroughly recommend it. That's The Justice of Kings by Richard Swann. Do let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. I've been, I want to play some Shatterpoint, and I want to replay Underworlds and things and do game stuff, but books really is my creative passion. And I think sometimes I should probably just follow my heart and do them, but a little bit of encouragement is always nice. So if you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more book videos on the channel, then do let us know. So like I say, my 2023 resolution is to read more fantasy books, or get back to my reading roots, if you will. And I read a couple of doozies. I'm reading a really good one at the moment, so I shall report back on that soon. And let me know what you think. And we'll see you soon on the Agents of Sigmar. Bye for now.